Hello everybody, welcome to my talk on TCAS Spoofing in Aviation, or should I also say, Díomh Macara, Carry on Scale. A table in the background is now floating somewhere. So now to properly get into the actual bleeding thing, welcome to Disassocia Aviation, which when I showed my sister the name of this talk, she had a bit of a dyslexic moment and didn't know what the hell was going on. But if you are curious exactly what it is about, we're going to be talking about this particular fella who'll be coming out now. This big boy over here known as the Airbus A320, and also a lot of different other planes I could just only be bothered to Photoshop one in. And so he can fuck off so we can go do the rest of the feckin' talk. Anyway, let's get right into it. So, the thing is though, it's every other talk always has, because there's always got to be a bit of a, oh look at, I'm so great, I'm fantastic. So my name is Seán Guthrie, or Mick LeBraid, or Mickey Braid as it says on my thing, because one of my friends said like, Jesus, this Mickey Braid doesn't shut the fuck up. Or you can also call me Calamity Sam, or Scooty McGrooty when I decided to bully Scott McGreedy on Twitter, which, funny enough, is how we're actually friends. I am a cyber threat intelligence analyst in the aviation community. I say that specifically because this is not an association with my job, because me in work is smart. Me in normal person living life is dumb as rocks. But I am with the Aviation Eyes Act, just exactly not right now. So between this barrier here, I have responsibilities. I had a bachelor's I went to the Technological University of Dublin. That acronym is TUD. They told us not to use TUD because it obviously sounds like something else. And yeah, interesting fact, I'm shit on guitar, and I'm shit in 2 languages. Both being Irish and English. You'll realize that mostly through the talk. And I found out, through the amount of presentations I do in work, I can't say the word authentication correctly. That comes up a lot, where I'll get messages just like, you didn't say it right again, because the amount of stuff that needs authentication to be doing an exploit, like, oh, this exploit doesn't require authentication. That one comes up a lot. But also, yeah, we've got the stamp approval of Glasgow. That's totally not AI generated. That rocket launcher there is, by the way, is really funny, the fact that I got to hold that at an air show. It's really interesting holding a rocket launcher at an air show. Anyway, so we'll jump right into it. So first off, you might be questioning what is TCAS, or majority of the words that are there. So most of your presentations you get these days, they just turn around and give you a big, massive blob of words, which, to be fair, I will have because I only know so much. But I think a bit more of a visual representation. So welcome Flight 22222 to Toulouse. With our pilot that you'll have thank you. You'll probably be introduced to immediately. So to give kind of a brief run through, what we're going to be talking about is TCAS, or Traffic Collision Avoidance System. Or my favorite reference to it that I found out on YouTube is too close, alarm sounds. You didn't have that one, Ken, put it in your next talk. So basically, to give a run through, the system alerts pilots of any nearby traffic to help prevent mid-air collisions. It works completely independently of air traffic control, which you will see throughout this talk, by using transponder signals, which is on the actual aircraft. The system has been developed after many major accidents, which is something I'll bring over as well, and has become very much a last reliable source tool, more or less, and then it serves as very much as a last resort backup. Now, very much, that's great that we can see the plane, but I feel like we need to introduce another variable in here to kind of give an idea. So, not just our Hack Glasgow talk, but I'd also like to introduce you to our other flight going the exact opposite direction.
If it's outside Yorkshire, it's not worth bloody visiting.
Not a single laugh. They didn't get it. They didn't fucking get it. You see? What's the fucking point? Anyway, if it ain't Yorkshire, it's not bloody worth visiting. Anyway, so we've got another aircraft heading in the opposite direction within about 1,000 feet, because all flights are divided, preferably within about 1,000 feet, both vertically and horizontally. Ken can keep me honest on that one. So very much we have this second plane going the other way, and we've noticed that it is coming into very much closer to us. So we have got into a position of we are getting a traffic advisory on our inside the plane. Very much what a traffic advisory is very much inside the plane. It's going, traffic, traffic. We're being alerted that traffic is about 40 to 45 seconds from impact. So we get a notification that I was like, okay, now we know. And now there is also, I didn't bother animating it because I am only getting paid so much to do this. You guys are getting paid. Very much on the screen, we are getting a little dot saying that the traffic is on the computer screen. I should have probably animated it. It would have been better. We're very much getting this from radars that were in on the
traffic.
I completely forgot I put that part in. Very much computer radars, which are at the radars that are at the very back of the plane, very much letting us know that there is traffic. So when we get a little bit closer, we've gone from just traffic to our TCAS system telling us to climb or descend depending on the plane. Very much like most of the modern planes these days will do this automatically through autopilot. Some of your older sort of planes will have to do it manually. And so prime example of, we have these calls being done. We have, this doesn't happen, but, you get a little bit of creative liberties. But he is correct. He does know sophistication. He's been to Leeds. So we have our autopilot very much, or in the scenario maybe that our pilot's doing herself very much, getting out of each other's way, and happy dandy, can continue on with our
Clear
flights.
of conflict.
We'll get a clear of conflict knowing that it's over. And for context for the baby grow, if Grom's in the room, he said that, oh yeah, maybe I'll get a baby grow if I go to SteelCon, because they gave a baby grow to Scott McGreedy and Alice McGreedy's kid when it came to SteelCon. So very much Grom came to his first SteelCon this year, and well, he did say that he was going to get a baby grow, and so they made him wear a baby grow at the end of the conference. You can ask him about that. He is the one with the mustache and looks very dapper, and he's probably in the lockpicking village. Anyway, getting back into it, prior to the world of TCAS, before the systems were putting on board, they very much had a lot of reasons like, well, aviation's safe. Sure, look, there's only so many planes and the sky is so massive. Surely they'd never get anywhere near each other. Well, you see, this is what air traffic looks like over Europe. You might notice something in particular. There's like at least 2 planes. That one specifically comes from, I was in the middle of a team meeting and I turn around to my coworker, Ragsec, or he told me not to dox him, even though if you look in the pamphlet, his name's there because he only told me yesterday. But very much I go to him like, hey, how many planes do you think are in the sky at all moments? And he just goes, well, at least 2. And technically, I mean, he's not wrong. But the other reason very much that they thought that like all this sort of finagle sort of TCAS, keeping an eye out, was not really important, is that you could just look out the window. Those planes have massive windows. See, that's great and everything, but there's a lot of fucking, there's no fucking, rear view mirrors on those bleeding things. It's not like you can just look back. It's like, all right, you can only see so far around. And that we're heading from the top, but also very much, you can only see that much, give or take. There's a little bit more down, considering the nose is a bit more roundy, kind of like Rayman. I've been playing a lot of Rayman 3 recently, so he's on my mind. I'm halfway through the game. It's fucking love that game. But you can only see so much, which is fantastic, but, there's another problem with that. It's like, okay, so they can see that much, but that's great when you can introduce clouds, and you can't fucking see shit. I mean, have you tried looking through a fucking cloud? I mean, I know you guys do, and like most people have, but that's not the same fucking cloud. I've checked. So, all the content is inaccurate, but the jokes are funny. So but the other thing they did rely on was very much like information from the ground, from air traffic control, or whatever version of air traffic control they had back in the day, to very much just give an idea of what's up in the sky. To give more of an accurate idea, also that's my favorite animation, but to give more of an accurate idea, we'll go into a case study that I'll throw up now, which is based on a very, very old crash known as the 1956 Grand Canyon mid-air collision. Mouthful. So, back in today, back in 1956, they didn't have all this fancy finangled air traffic control, sort of as we know it today. A lot of the flights would rely on their own instruments to keep an eye on obviously keep an eye on the height and and relay this back to their own air traffic control, which was individually monitored by whatever company you're with. So say it's TWA that have their own one, or United Airlines, or whomever have you, they'd relay to their own air traffic control. Thing is, they would sometimes share the information with each other, the air traffic controls, but they weren't really specifically regulated to do it. They would also use like paper tokens or physical maps or tables to keep an eye on all the flights that were happening. A lot of the managed sort of air traffic or the managed airspace we would have mostly over cities and airports, but there was a lot of uncontrolled airspace, which in that scenario you'd be very much giving visual flight rules, basically that the pilot's basically told like just keep an eye out your window, make sure you don't get too close to anybody, and you can fly a bit how you want. Also, as something to also remember, that flying back in those days was seen a lot more as like a luxury. You'd be getting people more in suits, very much seen as a very much like a higher class or like a sophisticated thing. And now they let me on planes, so it's not anymore. But very much pilots are able to do this in uncontrolled airspace, have a little bit of fun, as long as the weathering is permitted. Now, Specifically on the Grand Canyon crash that happened, very much this was 2 flights that took off from LAX. Don't know if they had the X at the time. They were still with them at the time, you see. So, you're welcome. Anyway, so both TWA and United Airlines, both flights were taking off around 10 minutes after each other. I believe the United Airlines flight took off about 10 minutes. Could be the other way around. I might be getting those facts wrong. If I do, feel free to not tell me because I don't care. Boat took off. One was heading towards Kansas, while the other one was heading towards Chicago. While they were taking off, they'd be heading in the same direction, and they wanted to take a little bit of a detour, go over the Grand Canyon to give the people who are on the plane a spectacular view over the Grand Canyon. And honestly, you know what? Fair. It's pretty fucking sick. Never seen the thing, but I've seen a postcard once. So both flights, as I mentioned, detoured over the Grand Canyon. The TWA flight requested to go over up to 21,000 feet because it was over the clouds, but they were initially denied. And then they changed their request to be about 1,000 foot over the clouds so they can have, and then switch to visual flight rules. And they were like, yep, that's completely fine. So the flight went over 1,000 feet over the clouds. And then because now they have visual flight rules, they decided to go 21,000 feet. Do you ever tell somebody not to do something and then they do it anyway? More or less. So both of them are 21,000 feet navigating through the clouds, and unfortunately they made contact. The United Airlines flight did try to avoid it at the very last moment, unfortunately was unsuccessful. The United Airlines flight, I believe, had its wing or part of its wing and its engine come off, while the TWA flight had the back of it come off, the entire, the tail of it come off, almost said fin. The tail come off, and both hurtled towards the ground, with the TWA going into a death spiral and going into the side of the Grand Canyon. This was the first crash in aviation that took more than 100 souls. So after this scenario, when this had happened, air traffic control, the very rudimentary, primitive air traffic control at the time, which I'd also mentioned, radar wasn't really a thing at the time. It was, of course, because of the war, but it was very much still kept within the military. It didn't transition over to commercial yet. But because of this, they didn't find out until that just happens. Don't worry about it. You're cancelled. Fuck off. Very much, they didn't find out about it until an hour and 20 when they were supposed to report in. So they had contacted everybody else who was in the airspace to basically like, has anybody seen this? And unfortunately, there was I believe they were a tourist, sort of like they take people onto the plane, basically show around the Grand Canyon, spotted these 2 flights. Ken nodded, so that's a yes. Thank fuck I was right. Spotted both of these planes that had crashed. So after this, there was very much, this became all over the news. The way air traffic control was undertaken was completely scrutinized within the media, and to very much make, bring back customer sort of, I guess the word is loyalty, but I can't remember at the specific time, but so bring trust back into the wider populace. Air traffic control was seen as old and outdated. They brought forward more to be, they took all the air traffic controllers, they trained them more, radar started being pushed into air traffic control. Through this and many other crashes afterwards, we have the development of the Federal Aviation Authority within the United States, which of course led to the Eurocontrol, CAA, et cetera, et cetera. And this led also to a spur of action towards the development of several systems on board, which if you've seen Ken Monroe's talk, which was fantastic, very much led to development like traffic collision avoidance systems. So, now that we've kind of got that, like now we're in the world of TCAS. Wow, fantastic, TCAS, that's fantastic. As mentioned, I said, it's the last line of defense. Did have a few growing pains. So I'm going to talk about another crash that did happen, all very doom and gloom. This one is a bit more recent in the world. This is from 2002, the Uberling mid-air collision. So, if it wishes to load faster, that one's a very slow transition. This one was on the 1st of July over Uberling, which is based in Germany, if I'm correct. It involves one DHL cargo jet, which was taking off from Italy. Originally took off from Bahrain, landed in Italy to refuel or do whatever. I don't remember that part because that part's not really important. And took off from there to head towards Brussels in Belgium, not a real country. Oh God, I'm getting into trouble. And then the next flight that was also heading from Moscow to Barcelona is a BAL passenger jet. And also in this story we have one overwork air traffic control. I realize I've just basically said the equivalent of ATM machine. But there we go. Me writing slides is not a smart man. So BAL was heading towards Spain while the DHL was heading towards Brussels. Another plane was landing at the same time when they were going, for context, I apologize, I didn't point this out. So, whilst they were flying over Oberling, Oberling is, as pointed out, is in Germany, but it is controlled by a company called SkyGuide. SkyGuide, if you don't know, is the same equivalent of NATS UK. It is the air traffic controlling for the country, but is a private company. So, this section has been specifically controlled by the Swiss air traffic control for this region. Another plane was beginning in this scenario when both of the DHL and the BAL flights had come within air traffic control space of this particular air traffic control. There was another flight that was landing about 2 hours late, coming in very much so. The air traffic controller who was alone on that night had to switch over to the next computer while these two flights are very much heading in a collision course, or near enough collision course. Dealt with that scenario with that plane landing, only to go back to the next screen to find these planes coming quite close to each other. So the air traffic control, the TCAS alert on both flights start shouting climb, climb, descend, descend. The BAL flight was shouting climb, whilst the DHL cargo jet was shouting descend. But in this scenario, unfortunately, the air traffic control person told the BAL flight, the Russian flight, to descend. This is where a bit of disparity or a bit of a difference come in. So in the majority of the Western world by this time, we were taught to very much listen to TCAS. TCAS overtakes air traffic control entirely. But in Russia, they were very much still on the old Soviet Union rules, and the Soviet Union rules was very much listen to the air traffic controller. So unfortunately, due to this conflict of information, both flights had made contact. To give a bit more of a sadder story onto this, the BAL flight was full of children who were going to Barcelona, and the children were of Russian military figures. After this, a lot of litigation happened. They blamed SkyGuide and they also blamed DHL, the whole thing. And as much as the crash had happened, it was absolutely terrible and took many people. The air traffic controller who unfortunately had it happen was murdered afterwards by one of the parents of one of the Russian children, was arrested, and when he came back to Russia, he was very much treated like a hero. So, a bit of a side tangent on that one, but honestly, this is just a fuck one altogether. These photos are fucked. Are you sure you want to have those? Oh, thank God. I wouldn't take me either. Anyway, so this is why we now have a regulation rule. We're very much where you find yourself getting TCAS shouting at the same time, you listen very much to TCAS climb. Yeah, that's great. I'm well past that. So, very much now we can talk about TCAS spoofing while I have 5 minutes shouted, and I'm not listening to that at all. Very much how it works. We have radio frequencies that it's being used for, and also it's using old legacy radio frequencies, while also it's been developed without authentication or confidentially measures. And the researchers, if this has been in a lot of researchers like our friends at Pentest Partners or researchers out in the University of Genova, one of those are right. Geneva, Jesus, I'm very good at maps. Very much they're able to produce false resolution advisories and make-believe collision threats that were actually not there. So, very much we have several concepts that were hypothesized, were done through lab experimentation. So, the two sort of main ones that were pointed out was the hypothetical ghost plane injections or phantom planes, or disabling of safety features on the safety feature of the TCAS jet, where very much they could change the sensitivity and have TCAS not report at all when a plane is on a collision course. Very much, as described by Pentest Partners, they have very much this wall of phantom planes where it can make the plane start to shout descend, or in a scenario like where it could just have conflicting reports, very much like climb and descend at the same time, or in a ooh, you talk shite. There we go. You missed all the fun parts. So very much a phantom plane can make it turn around and try climb, whilst another plane that's already in the airspace way ahead will also get a climb response and be like, yo, what the fuck? That one is specifically ripped off you. I'm getting sued. And then in another scenario where a plane can be very much sent on a lovely trip all the way up and down, climb, descend, climb, descend. Now, this is massively annoying, isn't it? Not me having to click the thing, but you can imagine as a pilot being thrown around the airspace like a feckin' ragdoll. Or the last one, which was introduced or was conceptualized by these researchers over the University of Geneva, I got it, is very much that the TCAS system on one plane could be very much just knocked out whilst they're both going towards each other. One of them will still shout climb or descend or whichever way, and being ignored by the one plane and very much just going on its way. Now, you might think this is all very much, they were hypothetical scenarios, but there has been an interesting real-world scenario that was being brought up, where about 1st of March there last year, over Reagan National Airport, also mentioned in Ken Munro's talk. There was multiple aircrafts that were approaching DCA, and they were experiencing TCAS resolution advisory alarms, all interestingly happening at 2,300 feet, and Jesus, it really hates me. And the TCAS in this scenario ended up, or not TCAS, Jesus, air traffic control were turning around and saying like there was nothing in the air, they couldn't see anything in the air, and interestingly enough, it was confirmed by the United States after the US Secret Service was conducting anti-drone testing nearby. It was Ted Cruz, I'll send you the video later, he looked at me weird. So, very interesting that like shows an example of it. Now, consequences of these sort of things is like it can cause confusion for pilots. In a scenario, maybe pilots would decide to turn off the TCAS because like, that's fucking annoying, I don't want to listen to that. It can erase erasure of trust with customers, which I've totally terrified everybody in the room. It's great. And could force pilots or autopilots to make unnecessary climbs or descends, or even that have phantom traffic could cause aircraft to move into paths of actual real traffic, as we previously described. Now, after all this scaremongering, make you terrified and all that, should we really be worried? Now, in a scenario such like this, it was demonstrated on very much older and legacy instruments. There's a lot of variables that need to be in this scenario. Now, we notice that it's 2 planes. If we wanted to have this fully work, it would have to be affecting both planes. You need to arrange these 2 planes, but even getting towards each other at all, because you can only get the radar or the range so far to even use this attack at all. You need both TCAS systems to be affected. And at the scenario, if one TCAS isn't responded, the other TCAS will very much pick up on this and fix itself very much to maybe even climb harder, but it will 100% get out of the way of this other flight. So, if one flight's being affected, at least we've got the other one. Now, traffic is, even though I've said the sky is big, but very much traffic is spread out, as I mentioned, horizontally and vertically by about 1,000 feet, making resolution authorities very rare. Advisory, sorry. Pilots are ensured to follow TCAS these days. When they are flying TCAS, to change it very gently and lightly, albeit different in the cockpit. In scenarios that there are a lot of odd TCAS, I'm just going to say RA, it's like authentication all over again. ATC can change, even in that scenario that I mentioned before, which I should mention, all those flights landed safely and properly. Air traffic controller can advise the slowing down of this. They advise in that scenario that there's a lot of weird TCAS anomalies happening in the scenario to keep an eye out for that. A lot of the planes ended up just going around and landed safely, but they can end up like slowing down traffic or just completely increase separation or even just shut down the airspace entirely. It's like a surprise, you get to see what's next. Ooh. Air traffic control also does monitor for these sort of things. It can provide sanity check if you feel like there's something a little bit wrong. And there's multitudes of different alerting tools that can provide other sanity checks if you are spotting these weird anomalies. There's also been education on these spoofing events. We're very much in, there's been towards educating how it works inside of a cockpit. And avionic vendors have been pushing updates towards this. And then we have also been moving on from TCAS towards airborne collision avoidance systems, or ATLEAST X, because it's cool as fuck. Now, before I go into this one, I will say about ATLEAST X, it's very much like TCAS, but they provide a lot more. They do ADSB, I believe would be the acronym, where they provide, like, they put GPS into it and a lot more than that. But makes it, even though GPS can also be spoofed, it provides a lot more variables that provides doing this all attack together is very difficult. Now, to very much end this sort of a talk, I kind of want to put it in a bit more of a, this has been talked about as an industry response. We've been doing it as, I've been doxed in the aviation ISAC has been stuff we've been discussing about, like, as companies have talked about. But at the same time, CISO has also released an advisory after releasing of these, the presentations and also the reports by the University of Geneva, Jesus Christ. But the two here is very much the reliance on untrusted inputs and security decisions, very much our phantom planes, and the external controls of systems and configuration settings. both have a CVE at the moment back from 2024, but most importantly to end it with, these vulnerabilities in the TCAS 2 standards are exploitable in a lab environment. However, they require very specific conditions to be met and are unlikely to be exploited outside of a lab setting. So as much as this is all scaremongering, it's very much hypothetical. It's been very much worked in a lab, and we're already very much doing a lot of work towards getting past this. But anyway, now I get to stop talking. Any questions if we have any more feckin' time? Yeah, I don't. Well, that's nice. You can talk to me outside. You can buy me a drink. So there's the somewhat resources that I put in, and thank you very much. Go to Míle Mágat.